Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to day 19 of our free training program on Python for AI. So, till now, we've learned about functions. So, functions help us to reuse the code within the same program. So far, we've learned about functions and the purpose and definition. So, the purpose of functions is to perform certain operations and provide code reusability. So functions let us reuse the code within the same program and save the operations. And function is a subprogram of a main program or a part of a main program. So there are two parts in a function. So the first part is function definition. So function definition exists only once and we can have multiple function calls. So the second part is function calls where we will call this function which we defined earlier such that that function will execute. So to do a function call, there must exist a function definition first. Otherwise, we'll be getting a name error. So after this, we've learned about, so that syntax to define a function is, we should use a keyword called def, and then we need to write the function name. And if there are any parameters, we need to write the formal parameters if any. Otherwise, we can leave it as empty. And we need to write the statements in the function which we want to reuse. And then how we can call this function is we need to use the function name. Anywhere in the program, we can use the function name. So then the function name should be same. And then we need to call it using any parameters, that is arguments, if there are any there, we need to use that. Otherwise, we can just call the function such that after the function call, this function will get executed and all the lines of code will be executed. So this is how functions are there. Totally, there are 4 approaches to define function. Please visit the previous videos to get a deeper explanation of that. And then we got to learn about arguments and parameters. So parameters are the variables which we use in the function definition, and arguments are the ones we use in the function call. So the variables which we use in the function call are arguments. And then we got to know about types of arguments, parameters. So in total, we have 5 types of arguments. So we also learned about these types. So positional arguments are used when the order matters. And when you have an order of the parameters, you can use the positional arguments or parameters. And when you have missing values, like to have a fallback values, we need to use the default parameters such that if any variable has we didn't give any value for that specific variable, the default value will be printed in place of that variable. And then we have keyword parameters or arguments. And when you don't know the order or when the order doesn't matter, when order doesn't matter, you can use the keyword parameters. And then we have the variable length parameters or arguments, which we can use it as asterisk arguments. So when you want to take multiple values dynamically, you can use these variable length parameters or arguments. And then for having key value pairs, you can use the keyword variable length parameters or arguments. So it is taken in the form of 2 asterisks, then keyword variable length arguments. And then we got to learn about the global keyword, global variables, local variables, and also global keyword, such that global keyword helps us to modify the global variables inside of a function. And then we have globals function. So this function is used to return the dictionary of global variables, global functions, in-between functions, etc. And then we also got to learn about the lambda functions. So these are like the one-line functions. Instead of writing a normal function in a number of lines, using the lambda function or anonymous functions, we can just write a function using lambda space parameters is to your iterable. So you can just write the lambda function in a single line. So that's actually lambda, and then your parameters and your single statement or any expression. So you can write it in that way. And we are now left with special functions and functions in Python. So today's topic will be starting with special functions in Python. So in Python, we have three important special functions. So they are filter function, map function, and reduce function. So firstly, let us know about the filter function. So filter function is used to filter out specific elements from an iterable like list, tuple, or some other variable data type. And how we can filter out specific elements from this iterable object is by applying a condition using a function. So basically what filter function does is it will filter the data or elements based on some condition. So it will only select the elements which will satisfy the condition. So the syntax of filter function is filter parenthesis. In that we'll write the filter name for applying the condition. So inside of this function, we'll have the condition to apply, and then we'll have the iterable object on which we will be applying that condition using the function. So here the variable name, var name is, it stores the result of the filter function. So this will store the result, and the type of variable name or var name here is class filter. So the type of var name is class filter, and it is not a list directly. So we must convert it using something like list of var name. So directly the result won't be in iterable object like list. So we need to convert it again like list of var name or tuple of var name. So using the typecasting functions, we need to convert it again to get into a correct output. And then we have the function name. So this function, it will define the condition. So this function consists of the condition which we need to apply on the iterable object. So this condition, this function can be a normal function, or else it can be a lambda function also. So it must return true to keep the element, or it returns false to discard the element in the iterable object. And then we have the iterable object. So for example, list, tuple, or set is like the iterable object here. So the collection of elements which we need to process, it will be in the iterable object. For example, list, tuple, a set, or a dictionary. So these are some of the iterable objects. And how a filter function works is first, each element is taken from the iterable object one by one. So let's take some list 1, 2, 3, 4. So first what happens is each element is taken. First 1 is taken, then 2, 3 and 4. So each element is taken from this iterable object one by one. And what they'll do is this element is passed through the function. So we have a function here, right? Inside of this we'll have the condition. Let's say the condition is n greater than 0. So I want to filter out positive numbers, let's say. So first they'll take n and they'll pass this one inside of our function, and function will check if the condition is true or not. So they'll take 1 greater than 0. So is 1 greater than 0? So this will give me true. So that is why this 1 will be included. So let's say we have -1, let's say. So is -1 greater than 0? No, right? So that would be false. So when the condition became false, that number or the element will be ignored. It will not be considered. So this continues till all the elements are done. So till all the elements in our iterable object is processed, this will continue. And then this result will be stored into var name, and then we need to convert this var name into list or tuple or set, however you need, using the typecasting functions. And then we'll get a good result. So first we'll be giving the input from the iterable object, and then we'll apply the condition. So the condition is in the function. So input is the iterable, and this will go into the function to check the condition, and then we will be keeping the true values. So only if the condition is true, we'll keeping that values, right? So it will keep only the true values, and then it will give the output. So this is the flow of filter function. Now let's understand about filter function through some examples. So first we have an example using a normal function. So we have a list of elements, that is positive elements and negative elements. So positive and negative numbers we have in a list, like 10 minus 20, 30 minus 31, and so on. So we have a list which consists of positive and negative numbers. Now using a normal function. So normal function is something we will be defining with def keyword, and we'll have a function name, and we have a parameter, formal parameter, and we have some condition here. So this will return true or false. So our condition or the function should return true false values, right? So this will return true false. So this function, what it will do is, it will check if your number from your list is positive or not. If it is positive, it will return true, and otherwise if this condition will become false, so it will return the else block, that is it will return false. So basically this is the condition for filtering out positive numbers from my list. Positive numbers. So now we have A equal to filter of decide comma list lst. So this is my function, and this is my iterable object, and this is my result where I'm storing the filter. So this is of class filter. So this is how we'll be applying the filter function. So this filter here, this will not return any list directly. So as we are taking the iterable object, you may think we'll get the result as list only, but this filter function which we are assigning to A, it will not return a list directly. Again, we need to convert this result A into some list or tuple using the typecasting functions like list function, tuple function. So now let's run this code and we'll understand it step by step. So what happened now is, first, this is the list and function. So these are defined, and our program will take this. And the main program here we have, so A equal to filter of decide comma lst. So this is the function decide, and our list is this. So what happens is, first the elements are iterated through till the end. First it will take the 10, and this 10 is given into this function decide. So n is 10 right now, and this, after going into this function, it will check if else condition. So if 10 or n is greater than 0, so is 10 greater than 0? Yes, it is greater than 0. So this is true. So condition is true. So it will print the statements inside of if statement only. So it will return true. So as this returns true, we will keep the 10 value. And then moving on, we have minus 20. So this to minus 20 will be given to this function, and in the place of n, we'll have the minus 20. So n equal to minus 20, and these statements will be executed. So first we'll check the condition n greater than 0. So is 20 greater than 0? So minus 20 is greater than 0. So this is a negative number, so it won't be greater than 0, right? So this is false. So as this condition is false, else statement will be directly executed. So the elements we have, the lines we have inside of else block is written false. So false will be written, and as it is false, this value will be ignored. So this will be included and this will be ignored. Now we have the value 30. So 30 is given into this function. So n equal to 30 right now. So we'll check the if else condition, that is n greater than 0. So n greater than 0 means 30 greater than 0. So is 30 greater than 0? Yes, it is greater than 0. So this condition will be true, and we'll execute this line, that is written true, and true will be written, and this number 30 will be included. And in the same way, all the numbers are iterated through. So now we'll check minus 31. So is minus 31 greater than 0? No, right? So as this is not greater than 0, it will return false, and this will be excluded. And this is also minus 42. So this minus 42 greater than 0 will be false. So it will return false, and this will not be excluded because it is a negative number. So this function is to only include positive numbers. And then we have 41. So 41 is n greater than 0, right? So this will be included. And then we have minus 31. Minus 31 is also not greater than 0. So this will be excluded. Then we have 61. 61 is greater than 0. So that is true. So this will be included. And minus 45, that is minus 45 greater than 0? No. So as it is not greater than 0, this will be excluded as well. So now we got the result. So this line execution is done. And then we'll move on to the next line. So it will print type of A. So I wanted to try knowing the type of A. So I use the type function of A and I printed type of A. So here I got type of A is class filter. And then the contents of A. So as I've told you, directly this filter function won't return the list. We need to convert it again. So the content of A right now is when we try to print A. So you will be getting filter object at so and so place. So we'll not get the contents directly. So as we don't get content directly, we need to convert this A into some list. So I used list of. So now I'm converting A, which is a type of a filter, into list using the list function, and then I'm assigning the value to PS list here. So this is a positive numbers list. So PS list, and we are trying to print the PS list using a string, comma, our variable name. So positive elements equal to, that will be enclosed in a string, comma. So this will give us a space and it will print the list of elements which are positive. So after converting, A will be of type list and it will give us the values which are included, that is positive values 10, 30, 41 and 67. So those are the elements. So if you try printing the type of list now, type of A, so let's print type of A. Okay, we need to print the type of PS list because we have assigned that value to here, right? So if you see, A before it was in a filter type, So that will not show us the contents of A directly. So we need to convert this into list. So I used a list typecasting technique or typecasting function, and I've converted into PS list. So I assigned that A by converting that into list and assigned it to PS list. So that the type of PS list is a list now. So we can get the elements neatly in this format. So this is how we can find the positive elements in a list using a normal function. Now we'll try using a lambda function. So here we have a function named as decide, and I'm assigning a lambda function to this variable decide now. So that is lambda. Here n will be our parameters and n greater than 0 will be the expression or our condition. So here we have a list of elements with positive and negative numbers, and I have a filter function, and so this will consist of the function first, comma, the iterable object. So this iterable object and this function. So what happens is it will take each element and it will give it to the function which is decide. That is the lambda function now. So this will decide what that is lambda n. N is 10 right now. So let's take 10 is 10 greater than 0. So is 10 greater than 0? Yes, it is greater than 0. So as this will give a output of true. So we'll get n greater than 0 as true, right? So the condition will give true. So 10 will be included. And we'll check with minus 20. So in the same way, in the place of n, we'll take minus 20 now. So n equal to minus 20, and they'll check minus 20 greater than 0. So is minus 20 greater than 0? No. So that is why this will be negative number and this will be excluded. And then we'll check 30 now. So n is 30 value now, 30 greater than 0. So that will be true because it is a positive number and greater than 0. So as this will give us true, so that number will be included. In the same way, minus 31 greater than 0 will be false. Minus 42 greater than 0 will be false. Minus 41 greater than 0 will be true. Minus 31 greater than 0 will be false. 67 greater than 0 will be true. Minus 45 greater than 0 will be false. So in this way, the iteration will be done through each object, each element one by one. And we are just using the n greater than 0 logic in just a single line now. If we take a normal line, we'll have some 4 if else block, right? So we'll have number of lines. So instead of that, we are just using that condition itself in a single line using a lambda function here. And we are filtering the positive numbers from the list of positive and negative numbers. And here, so the output will be given to A. But A will not directly give the contents of the filtering, right? So we need to convert it into a list or a tuple. So I'm converting into a list and I'm assigning that list to PS list and I'm printing that list. So now if I run this, so the type of A will be a filter. So contents of A will give us this and not a list directly. So we need to convert it into a list and we will get the result as this. Now moving on, here we are using directly the lambda instead of filter only. And let's start from first. So we have a list with positive and negative numbers again, which is a LST list. And here what I'm doing is first let's understand our filter function first. So filter will have a function name, right? So first we need to give the function name, comma, we need to give the iterable object. So the iterable object here is LST. So I gave it after comma, obviously. But if you see, I've directly written the lambda function here only. Instead of assigning it to some variable like decide equals to lambda, and using this decide here, I've just directly used that lambda function line in the place of list directly. So what this does is, it does the same thing as before function. As before problem, it does the same thing, but directly we are giving a lambda function in the place of the function name. That is lambda n, which is the parameter here, is to n greater than 0 is your condition. Excuse me. So n greater than 0 is your condition here. And we are checking each element inside of your iterable object list LST with this condition in the function, lambda function. So n will take each element from your list one by one, and it will check with the condition n greater than 0. And after checking, what values will give the true values, that is the positive values 10, 30, 41 and 67. So these values will give positive values, right? As they are positive numbers. It will give true. So we'll collect all that values, but still the filter function doesn't give us, so it won't return the list directly. So we need to convert it into some iterable object like list or tuple using the typecasting functions, right? Tuple or set or dict. So what I did is, I have enclosed this filter function inside of a tuple typecasting function, such that the result of the filter function will be converted into a tuple, and it will give me the result in a tuple value. So after converting, what will be the result? 10 comma. So the positive values all will be in a tuple, right? So 10 comma 30 comma 41 comma 67. So this will be our result, and this is assigned to PS now. So this PS is the variable which will consist of the result, that is a tuple format of filtering of these functions into positive values. So we are printing the PS. So it will give positive elements equals to the tuple. So let's run this. So as you can see, we got directly the positive elements equals to 10, 30, 41 and 67, which is the tuple. So after filtering the functions, we are outputting the tuple of the positive elements from this list. Then moving on, we are having a function where user will input the elements, and that elements will be filtered. So first, user will enter the number of elements here. Let's say first, let's run the function and we'll understand it. So enter how many elements you have. Let's say I have 4 elements. So enter all the 4 elements. So I have -3, 5, -10 and 6. So we got the result. So original elements in the list is the elements I gave, 4 elements, and the positive elements are 5 and 6, and negative elements are -3 and -10, and 0 elements are, we don't have any in my list. So now let's understand what happens in this function. So first we need to give enter how many elements you have. So how many elements we want to enter, we need to give it first, because we need to run a for loop, right? That is why we need to take the number of elements the user will have. So we will convert first, this input will take in a string format. So I gave 4, right? So first it will take in a string format only. So but we need to take it as an integer number. We want to use it as an integer. So that is why I've used the int typecasting technique and enclose this total input function inside of int. So this string 4 will be converted into an integer 4. So n will be an integer number 4. So this will be integer type. Now we are trying to check if the given number is valid or not. So if we give 0 number, so there are no elements to take, right? So this will be an invalid input for this case, and we'll take a negative numbers. So the count can't be a negative number, right? So that is why, so these both will be invalid inputs, and we will check the if else first. So inside of if, we are checking if the number of elements you took are valid or not. So the condition is n less than equal to 0. So if your n element is less than 0 or equal to 0, your output will be invalid. So that is why if this condition will become true, we will directly print the n number, that is, let's say -1. So -1 is invalid input, will be returned. Now let's check if 4 is less than equal to 0. Is 4 less than 0? No. Is 4 equal to 0? No. So that is why this condition is false. So as this condition became false, we will directly ignore these block of statements inside of if condition and will not print this statement, and will directly print the block of statements or execute the block of statements inside of else condition. So else block. So this block of statements will be executed one by one. Now let's understand this else block. So we have n value equal to 4. That is, I want to enter 4 number of elements into my list and I want to filter it out. So first we are creating some empty list such that when user will give the inputs, so these elements will be appended or added into the list. And then we can use this list to filter the elements. So we need to create an empty list first. And then we are printing a neat heading. So we'll print a line and then we will give enter n elements. So n number of elements. So we'll give enter 4 elements and and then we'll give the line again such that it will be like a neat heading. So after that, so it will print the heading and user will be giving the inputs one by one. So for taking the inputs, we are using a for loop. So this loop will take the elements one by one and add them into the empty list LST. Okay. So this is what happens. So n equal to 4. So for I, so this is our loop variable or loop control variable. We'll just use it for iterating through our iterable object. So we have for I in range 1 comma n plus 1. So 1 comma n is 4, right? So 4 plus 1. So the range of 1 comma 5 we need to take. So range means this is the start value and this is the stop value, right? We need to take elements from start to stop minus 1. So we need to take these elements in this range of values. So the values will be 1. So start to stop, that is 5 minus 1, right? So we need to take elements from 1 to 4 only. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are taking 4 elements. So that is why we need to take range 1 comma n plus 1 such that till this number it will be taken and we will exclude the stop value, right? So that is why we will take 1 comma n plus 1 when we are taking range of some number of numbers. So n equal to 4 and this range will give 1 comma 4. So it will take values, 4 values with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So first I will refer to the first element. So we'll take the value, or you can just like write enter the value I. You can just like, for better understanding for the user, you can give the prompt as enter and we'll keep a curly braces element. And then we'll use the format function and we will print I there such that we'll give enter 1 number, enter 2 number, that is enter second number, enter third number. So let's once again run this code. One second. So now we'll enter. I've just changed that 50 to 40 because we'll only need less number of hyphens. So let me enter how many values I want to enter. Let's give 5. So as you can see here, first it will give me the heading, enter 5 values. So enter 5 elements is given. So after that, we will take the range of values. So 1 to 5 plus 1, that is 6. So it will take the values from 1 to 6 minus 1, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So this is the start value and this is the stop value, right? So we'll take only the elements from start value to stop value minus 1. So that is why 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I value first it will represent 1. So it will take, so it will give the prompt as enter one element. So this I value which is used in the format. So this I will be taken here, that is one value first. So this is I, right? So enter one value. That is enter the first element it is telling us. So after I enter 2, it will give enter 2 element. So what happened is, after I gave enter one element equal to 2, so this will convert this 2 element. First it will take as a string, right? Input function will take any input as a string by default. And using the int typecasting technique, we are converting it into integer 2. So now val here, which is the value. So val will be 2 after the first iteration. And this val is appended into the empty list using list dot, that is lst dot append of the val. So what happens is the list function dot append. Now for the first iteration, what is the value? 2. So this 2 will be appended or added to the empty list we have. So now the empty list will become 2. So this is empty list initially. So now 2 value will be there. So this is for the first iteration. So after the first iteration, so now after the first iteration, 1 is done, right? Now I will be pointing to 2. So this I will be pointing to 2. So that is why I got enter 2 element. So I is 2 now. So enter 2 element will be given. And when I enter some element, let me give a negative 10. So now I gave the second element. So when I equal to 2, I have given the value as minus 10. So this minus 10 will be taken as the input and converted into integer and be saved into the variable val. So val will be equal to 10. That is minus 10. So val is minus 10 and I am appending this val into my list lst. So lst dot append val will be minus 10. So minus 10 is added into the list. So after first iteration, we have 2 in the list and now we will have minus 10 in the list. So now second iteration is done. Now I will point to the next element or next number, that is 3. So that is why as I equal to 3, I got enter 3 element. Now I'll enter some third element. Let's say 5. Now this 5 will be taken into the input function and be converted into integer and be assigned to the value val. So val equal to 5 now. When I equal to 3, val is 5. And this 5 value will be appended into our list lst. So after the third iteration, our list consists of these 3 elements, 2, minus 10 and 5. So after the third iteration, we have 2, comma, minus 10, comma, 5. After the third iteration. Now, we got, now we are done with 1, 2, 3. So now I value will be equal to 4. So now I equal to 4 and it will print enter fourth element. So it'll ask us to enter the fourth element and enter 4 element will be printed and will be giving the fourth element now. So fourth element will be minus, let's take 0 now. So let's take one element as 0. So this input will take the 0 and it will convert it into integer and that value will be saved into val, that is 0. So val will be equal to 0, and this val will be appended into the list using the dot append val. So now in our list we'll have the 0. And now we are done with the fourth iteration. After fourth iteration, we have 4 elements in our list. Now I is equal to 5. That is the fifth element we are taking. So that is why enter 5 element will be given. So we got this, and we will be entering our fifth element. Let's take a negative value 20. So here in the fifth iteration, when I equal to 5, so the value given as minus 20, right? So this minus 20 is taken by the input and converted into integer, and it is saved into the val variable. So val equal to minus 20, and this val is now appended into the list LST using the dot append is to val. So this 20 will be appended into our list LST. So it will be appended here at the end of the existing elements. So now we have LST equals to 2 minus 10, 5, 0, minus 20. So now we got all the inputs from the user. So we are done with the for loop. So as this for loop has been done without any break statement, so it's done normally, right, without any breakage. So that is why the else block of this for loop will be executed. So this will execute all these lines. So the else block has these set of lines. So we will execute all of them one by one. Okay, we'll be executing this. And first we will print the original elements in our list, that is 2, minus 10, 5, 0, minus 20. Okay. First, the original elements in the list is 2, minus 10, 5, 0, minus 20. So after this, we will be doing the filter. So here we have a filter function. This filter function will filter out the positive elements, and we can save it into PS list. Okay. So first we have the function and we have the iterable. So this lambda function will take an element from the iterable object, and it will take the values which will give true when this condition is applied to it. So first let's take 2. So n equal to 2 right now. So n 2 greater than 0. So is 2 greater than 0? Yes, it is greater than 0. So this will give true. So this will consider the value 2 for the positive elements. And then it will move on to minus 10. And they'll check is minus 10 greater than 0. So minus 10 greater than 0 will be checked. So is this greater than 0? No, right? So this is false. So as this is false, this number will be ignored by this filter. Next, moving on, we have the number 5. So they'll check 5 greater than 0 or not. So is 5 greater than 0? Yes, it is true. So 5 will be taken again. And then they'll check 0. So is 0 greater than 0? No, right? That's false. So this will be ignored. And they'll check minus 20 greater than 0. So is minus 20 greater than 0? So that is also false. So they'll not consider these elements, and they'll consider only 2 comma 5. So as this function filter won't return you a list or a tuple, which is the iterable object, we need to convert them using a typecasting functions, right? So I've just enclosed this filter function inside of a list function. So directly these filtered elements will be converted into a list of elements. So this will give me list of filter of, in that we'll be having elements. So we'll be converting these elements into a list. So PS list will consist of the elements 2 comma 5. So these are the positive elements. So LST will consist of 2 minus 10, 5, 0, minus 20. Now we are trying to filter out the negative list of elements. So we have first see the filter function, and I am filtering this list. So using a lambda, that is lambda k, this is the parameter. So this parameter takes the each element, and hyphen, sorry, colon, and it will check the condition k less than 0 or not, comma list. So this is the function here, and this is the iterable object. So this iterable object consists of this list, and it will check this condition k less than 0 or not. If it is less than 0 will be true, then it will consider that elements. So first this k will be 2. So k equal to 2. 2 less than 0 is checked. So is 2 less than 0? False. So this is ignored, and then it will check minus 10 less than 0. So minus 10 is less than 0 or not? Yes, it is. So this will consider the minus 10 element, and then it will check 5. So k will be 5, and 5 less than 0 is checked. Is 5 less than 0? False. So it will be ignored, and then it will check 0. So is 0 less than 0? No, right? So 0 will be equal to 0 but not less than 0. So this is also false. So this will be ignored. Now it will check k equal to minus 20. So the last element is minus 20, and is it less than 0 will be checked, the condition. So as minus 20 is a negative number, so it will be less than 0. So that will be true. So this element is included. So minus 20. And then as filter function doesn't give me directly a iterable object type of result, so we need to convert that filter function to some list or tuple. So here that's why I gave a set. So set function, if you see this parenthesis to this parenthesis, so I've enclosed the filter function inside of a set typecasting technique or function. So inside of the set function, I've enclosed it. The filter function is enclosed inside of a set function. So this list of elements will be changed or converted into a set. So this negative elements will be in a set. And then we are checking a 0 list. So that is 0 element or not. So we have a tuple of. So I'm enclosing the filter function in a tuple such that I'll get a tuple variable as an output. So this 0 list will be a tuple, and we are writing the filter function using the lambda k. So k is the parameter again, is to k equal to 0. So if the element on left hand side and right hand side will be equal, because we have a equality checking operator here. So if that is true, we'll be considering that. Otherwise, we'll not consider the element. So we'll filter the 0 elements from the list LST. So first we'll check 2. So 2 is 2 greater equal to 0? False. Is minus 10 equal to 0? False. Is 5 equal to 0? False. Is 0 equal to 0? So that will be true. So they'll consider 0. Now minus 20. Is minus 20 equal to 0? No, it is false. So only 0 will be there, and that result will be converted into a tuple. So we'll give a parenthesis here. So now we got all the positive, negative and 0 numbers. And now we will output these PS list, NS list, 0 list. So positive elements will be equal to the PS list, and negative will be equal to NS list, and 0 elements will be equal to 0 list. So that's why we got here 3 print statements. So positive elements equal to list of 2, 5, done. Then we have negative elements that will be equal to set of minus 10, minus 20. So as set will give unordered type. So the elements will not be in an order. So it doesn't follow insertion order. So we got minus 20, minus 10. So it is kind of jumbled. And then we have tuple only 0. So when you are writing a tuple with a single element, you need to for sure mention a comma. So if you are writing more than 2 elements, it's fine, like 1, 2. We don't need to write a comma here again. But if you have only one element, you need to mention the comma. So as I have only 1, 0, we got the comma here. So now we are done with finding the positive, negative and 0 elements. Now moving on to the next So here we are using a list comprehension topic. So what's happening here is so here we've took an example. So how list comprehension works is so directly when you want to create a list, we can use the concept of list comprehension. And here in this code specifically, what's happening is we will be taking the int of the x values such that the condition is this. So the elements will be taken in the list LST will be int of x, but the condition for x is for x in input dot split. So what happens here is this input function will take a input as a string. Okay, so this input function, so this input function will take a line as a string, some line of elements as a string, and this string will be splitted using the dot split function. So let's say we gave here elements as 3, -4, 6, 0, -20 and 0, right? So this will be taken as a string, and using the dot split function, these elements will be splitted from the gaps they have. So the spaces there are there in between the elements, right? So these will be splitted based on the spaces. So it will take a element, and here we have a space, so this will be splitted here, and wherever the spaces are there, the values will be splitted there. So this will split the string based on the space between the characters here. So this will split into 3, 4, that is -4, 6, 0, and so on. Same way, each element will be taken as a string only and will be splitted and added into a list. Okay. So after that, so we have a for loop. So this is splitted into each element. So we'll write it neatly. 0, -20, 0. So now, as we have a for loop for x in, so this will be the iterable object. So this value is the list of elements, right? So for x, first x will take the first element, and what it will do is this for loop will iterate through each element one by one. As it is a loop, it will iterate through each element, and using the int x, it will take the first element from this. So for loop x value will be 3, which is a string, and that will be converted into integer using the int of x. So what happens here is int of 3 will be happening. So that output will be 3. So this list will have first element as 3, and then this x will move on to the next element, that is -4. So x will be -4. X is -4, right? Which is a string element. Now the int x will be applied on this. So int of x will give int of -4, and this result will be -4. So from string it will be converted into an integer, and this element will be the next element of LST list. In the same way, all the elements are iterated through, which are strings, will be converted into integer values using the int typecasting technique, and the values of our list will be 3, -4, 6, 0, minus 20 and 0. So these will be the values in our list LST. So this is the list comprehension. Using list comprehension, you can directly create a list rather than again using a for loop in a separate way and then appending each element into list. Rather than that, you can directly use a list comprehension topic and directly the elements will be added into our list LST. So this is what happens here. And now these elements are taken. So first, the original list of elements will be printed. So original list of elements will be 3, minus 4, 6, 0, minus 20, 0. So this will be our list LST. Okay. Then we have the filter functions now. So these filter functions will, first, this filter function will find the positive numbers. Because the condition here is n greater than 0, right? So same as the before programs, this filter function will filter out the positive numbers. So this will filter out positive numbers, that is 3, 6, that's it. So this will be 3 comma 6 and this is typecasted into a list. So as filter doesn't give us iterable object type result, we need to convert it into iterable object, that is list here. So this will be converted into list of 3 comma 6 and this ns list will have the elements of negative numbers. So condition is k less than 0. So whenever the number less than 0, so that number will be included in this ns list. So we are converting this filter result into a set. So the ns list is a set type of variable and it will consider the elements. So 3 less than 0 will be false. So this will not be considered. So minus 4 less than 0 will be true. So minus 4 and 6 will be positive, it not considered. 0 less than 0 is also false, it will not be considered. Minus 20 less than false will be less than 0 will be true. So that will be considered inside a set. And we have 0 again. So that is not there also. Then we have a 0 list. This will have the elements which are zeros only. So as the condition k equal to 0, only if the element is 0 will be considered into this 0 list. So this 0 list is a type of tuple object. So we are typecasting it into tuple. So the elements first 3 equal to 0 false, minus 4 equal to 0 false, 6 equal to 0 false, 0 equal to 0 will be true. So 0 is taken. Minus 20 equal to 0 will be false, 0. So 0 equal to 0 will be true. So 0 is taken. And this is converted into tuple. So that is why we got positive elements 3 comma 6 in a list, negative elements minus 4 comma minus 20 in a set, and 0 elements 0 comma 0 in a tuple. So if you see, we have two elements here, that is why we will not be giving a comma again here. Only if you have single element, for mentioning it as a tuple, you need to surely give comma. Otherwise, this will be considered as a list or something. So if you need to consider this as a tuple, when you have single element, you need to give a comma here. So now we got the positive, negative and 0 elements from this. So the same filtering logic is applied throughout the sums, but we did in a different ways, using a normal function first and then we used a lambda function. So we used a normal function and then a lambda function, and directly we are using the lambda in place of a function inside of filter here. And then we also learned about the user based. So when user inputs, we need to take the numbers and we need to add them into a list or tuple, your wish. So we need to take that elements and we need to apply the filter functions for that list. And we need to find the positive, negative and 0 elements. Here directly, instead of using a for loop and then appending the elements into the list, I've used a list comprehension topic and directly I've created the list with user inputs. Now we'll learn about the next type of special function, which is map. So this map function is used to create a new iterable object by applying a function to each element of a existing iterable. So simply we'll have a iterable, and what this map function does is it will apply some condition on each element of your iterable. Let's say I have 4 elements in it in this iterable and I'm applying some condition on each of the elements. And after applying the each element, the condition or some expression, so we will be creating a new iterable. So that means we are creating a new iterable by applying a function which will consist of the condition or the expressions. So we'll be applying a function. So creating a new iterable by applying a function on each element of your existing iterable. So such that after applying the function on each element of your old iterable, we will get a new iterable object. So simply we will transform each element in your iterable. So to transform each element in your iterable object like list or tuple, basically list is mutable, so we'll take list. So tuple is not mutable, so we'll not take that. So this is a map function. And here, okay, we have a variable name. First, we need to assign this map function to some variable name, right? So first, we'll have a function name which we want to apply on our old iterable object. So function name, this function consists of a normal function or a lambda function, or you can define the operation you want to apply on your iterable object, like simply incrementation or multiplying with some number, so on. So your iterable object here, it can be actually, it can be a list, tuple, set, and dictionary. So even if your tuple is a immutable object, so you're not directly mutating or you're not modifying the old tuple, right? You're creating a new one. So new iterable is created. So new iterable object is created from old iterable object. So you can use a tuple object also here. So when you do use a tuple object or list object here, the condition or the function will be applied on each element, and that new elements will be added to the new iterable object, will be printing that new iterable object. So you can take immutable objects also, because we are not modifying the existing one. We are creating a new one from the old one by applying the condition. So in this way you can use the map function. And how it works is, when you have a iterable, let's say 1, 2, 3. So each element will be gone into the function, and this function will process your element, and the modified value is returned. So the new modified value is returned, and all elements will go into the function one by one, and all the modified values will be taken, and all the results will form a new iterable object. Let's take a list. So let's take some function where we are doing incrementation n plus 1. So for one, incrementation will be 2. So 2 plus 1 will be 3. And 3 n plus 1, that is 3 plus 1 will be 4. So new iterable object will consist of 2, 3, 4. So in this way your map function will perform the calculations. Now let's take a look at the examples. So first, we are trying to use the map function on a normal function, which is not a lambda function, a normal function. So here we have a function called as hike. So this function will calculate the hike in some person's salary. So first, so what this function does is, it will calculate the new salary after your hike. So I have mentioned the function name as hike, and this will take the old salary as the input. So before starting this, let's take a break for 1 minute and we will continue with the examples for map function. Okay, everyone, we'll have a normal function here. So the function calculates the new salary after the hike. So we are giving the employee a 2% hike. So 2% means 2 by 100. So that will be 0.02, right? So when you add a hike for the salary, what you will do is you will do salary. So you're giving a 2% hike. So what you will be doing is salary plus salary into 2% of salary, right? So 2% of salary will calculate and will add it to a salary. So what we'll do here is salary plus salary into 2% means 0.02. So here we can directly take salary common and we'll get 1 here plus 0.02. So that will directly give me salary into 1.02. So directly when you want to do 2% of hike, you can just do salary into 1.02. So that is what we are doing here. We are transforming the old salaries into new salaries by giving a 2% hike. So we are multiplying the salary with 1.02 and assigning it to salary again. So this function will take the old salary and it will apply the 2% hike and it will return the new salary. So we are just modifying the SAL variable itself. So it will give the new salary variable values. So now let's move on to the main program. So first let's run the program and we'll understand how this is working. So here So here we have the function and our main program. So old salary list is 10, 25, 30 and 40. So this is the iterable object we'll give to the map function. So here map function is used, comma, the function name is hike, right? So hike is written, comma, the iterable object. So iterable object is old salary list. So this old salary list will be taken here. So now we are iterating through each object of the old salary list. We are iterating through each element of the old salary list. So we have the list and now we are applying each element. So first what happens is the first element will be given to the function. So the 10 will be given to here. So the SAL value is 10 because in place of the parameter itself we are giving this argument, right? So sal equal to 10. And after going through this, so sal will be updated to 10 into 1.02. So that will be 10.02. Sorry, 10.2. So now the salary value, so this will 10 will be converted into 10.2 and then we'll give 20. So now salary will be 20 and it goes through this function and will be calculated 20 into 1.02. So 20 into 1.02 will be 20.4. So we'll take the value 20.4 and then the next value is 5. So we'll take the value 5 into this function. So value 5 is taken into this function. So sal value will be 5 and so after this 5 into 1.02 will be calculated. And after calculating that, the answer will be 5.1. So 2% will be added. So that is 5.1. So the value is 5.1. And so on for 30, it will be 30.6 and 40, it will be 40.8. So these are the new salaries after these values going into this function. So no, these values are transformed, right? So these values will be given. So the map also doesn't return. So the map is assigned to something called as OBJ. So OBJ is the result and type of OBJ will be class map. So as we are giving the map function result to OBJ, the OBJ will be of class map. Now directly we need to convert this obj into a list, and then we need to assign that to a new list, because it will not directly return us the output in a list format. So we need to convert it into a list using the list typecasting function. And after converting this values into a list, so that will be in a list. So this list is given to new salary list. So new salary list is equal to 10.2, 20.4, 5.1, 30.6, 40.8. Now we got the new salary, so we'll print both old salary and new salary using the dot format function. So we got old salary list is 10, 20, 5, 30, 40, and new salary list is this. So we got to print that. Now this is how we can use a normal function instead of a map function to get the transformation of old values into new values. So for the next example, we are directly using a lambda function. So which is a one-line function. Instead of writing this 3 lines of code, we can just complete it using a lambda function in a single line. So now our function hike, so the same name hike, is equal to a lambda function. So these are the parameters. SAL is your params or parameters, and this is your single line statement or expression. So we are converting the old salaries into salary into 1 plus 1.02. So we are giving a 2% hike and we are adding it to the old salary. So now we have old salary list as 10, 20, 5, 30, 40. So now what you need to do is you need to write a map function which consists of the function name hike, comma, the iterable object old salary list. And what we've done it here is directly I'm enclosing this map inside of a list. So the output of map function will be converted into a list directly using this typecasting function. So we will get the new iterable object in the form of list, and that will be assigned to new salary list. So after applying the 2% hikes, same as the previous program, we will give the old salary list as same 10, 25, 30, 40, and new salary list will be 10.2, 20.4, 5.1, 30.6, and 40.8. So just the difference of before function or before program and this program is instead of using a normal function, we've used the lambda function. So we'll be getting the same result. So we are done with this condition logic in a single line rather than writing 3 or more lines. So this lambda function is applied on each element in the iterable objects, which is the list. After applying, it will create a new iterable object, and that is given into the new salary list, and then we'll get the new salary list. Now moving on, when we want to take the user input. So now user wants to give the input. So first, let's print this and we'll understand the code. So enter old salaries separated by space. So my salaries are 200 with the space you need to enter here because we are using a list comprehension and we are splitting it. So we'll understand it. 200, 300, 400, let's say. So these are my old salaries. First, what happens is this line will be printed, enter employee old salary separated by space. So we need to enter each salary separated by a space. So here, I've given the spaces. Now what happens is, so the old salary list will take the values float of salary, but our condition here is for sal, which is a control variable, loop variable. So this is our main input. So it will take the input. Input function will take the input 200, 300, 400 in the form of a string. So it will take 200 space 300 space 400 as a string. and using the dot split function here. So what dot split function does is, based on the spaces, it will separate the values or split the values. So this dot split function will split the values into 3 values using the spaces. So now the values are 20, 200, 300 and 400. Now, so this whole iterable object is this. So for Sal, first Sal will take the first element, that is 200 in a string. So 200 in a string will be taken using the variable, control variable or loop variable Sal, and that value will be converted into float of Sal. So float of Sal will convert this value into a float value. So directly you can convert float. So 200.0. So the first value will be 200.0 and then the Sal will point to 300. So this. Now salary is equal to 300. Then this salary will value, that is 300 in a string, will be taken here and be converted into float. So float of Sal will be 300.0, and similarly now salary will be the next element, that is 400. So this, in a for loop, the Sal will point to 400 and this value is converted into float using the float of Sal. So now the Sal will be string 400 and that is converted into float of Sal, that is 400.0. So now we got the old salary list from the users, that is 200.0, 300.0 and 400.0. Now, so we have the old salary list and now the new salary list is calculated using the map function. So inside of the map function, first consider this. We have the function directly as lambda. So instead of assigning this to some other function name as hike and then using that hike here, rather than doing that, directly we are writing the lambda function inside of the map function where we need to mention the function name. So where we need to write the function, we are directly mentioning the lambda function. So it will take the values from old salary list and it will take each element one by one and it will take as Sal here and it will convert that Sal into 1.02. So let's say we are taking 200.0, 300.0 and 400.0. So that are the elements in the old salary list, right? So first the Sal will take the 200.0 value and that will be converted into Sal into 1.02. So 200.0 into 1.02 will be 204.0. So this is a transformed value. Now Sal will be pointing to 300.0. So now Sal is equal to 300.0 and we'll apply the expression, that is Sal into 1.02. So 300.0 into 1.02 will be the value 306.0. And now salary will be 400.0 and we'll apply the condition again. So 400.0 into 1.02 will be 408.0. So these are the new transformed values and these are converted into a list using the typecasting function list, and these will be values of a new list that is assigned to new salary list. So this old salary list will be a list 200.0, 300.0, 400.0 and the new salary list will be 204.0, 304.0, 408.0. So now we got the old salary list and new salary list, right? So after getting it, we are trying to print it. So we are using a for loop for both of them and we are printing the old salary list and new salary list in the new line. So old salary list is printed here and for old sal, this is a loop control variable here. So this will take the elements in the old salary list one by one. So the elements in this are 200.0, 300.0 and 400.0. So now first old sal will point to 200.0 and using a tab space it will be printed. So this is printed. Now old sal will be pointing to 300.0 and that will be printed. So 300.0 is printed and now we are having old sal equal to 400.0 in our list. So that will be printed in the next value. And then we are printing the new salary list. So new salary list heading is printed here. And then the new salary list will consist of 204.0, 306.0 and 408.0. So now new sal, which is a loop control variable which is used inside of this loop only. So this will point to 204.0 first. And we are printing using a tab space and we are rounding off to two values. So that is why you will get the output as 204.0. And then we have 300.0 which is calculated into 306.0. So that value is printed here and 408.0 will be printed here. Now the old salary and new salary are printed as a table format, let's say. So we've printed the heading, that is old salary space new salary. So this is printed like a table format. So that is why we are printing it in that way. So old salary, new salary. So first we are taking these are the loop control variables in the for loop and old comma new in zip of old salary list and new salary list. So what zip function does is it will pair the old salary list and new salary list. So zip function will pair the old salary list and new salary list. And now we are printing the each pair. So first old will point to the old salary list. That is for the first one it is 200.0 and the new salary will be printing the 204.0. So in the same way they are printed. So it is printed as a table format. Now moving on, we are calculating the square and cube calculations using the math function. So first, let's run the code. So enter list of elements separated by space 2, 3, 4. So now we have the elements. Okay, let's say I'm giving the spaces. So enter elements 2, 3, 4. Okay. For the better viewing, I just added two tab spaces here. So first, let's understand the code. So first we are entering the elements separated by space. So we are using the list comprehension and printing the list directly. So enter list of elements 2, 3, 4. So this input will be taking the 2, 3, 4 as a string and we'll convert this string. So we'll split the elements using the dot split function. So based on the spaces between the elements, this will be splitted. And this will be splitted into 2, 3 and 4. And now we have a for loop here for val. So val is the loop control variable. Val will be pointing to 2 first. So it will be pointing to 2 first, which is a string, and it will apply float of val. So 2, which is a string, will go into float function and we'll get a float value. And then val will be pointing to 3 and we'll get 3.0 by applying float. and then we'll get 4.0. So these will be converted from strings to float values one by one. So now our list will consist of LST 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So to not lose data, we are just converting them into float values. Then we are finding the square and cube of each element in our list. So first we need to write a map function. Inside of that map function, we need to have the function which will calculate the square values, comma, the iterable object, which is the list. So this list is LST. So this is the iterable object. So this function, lambda function, will take each element from your LST iterable object list. So now this val is the parameter here, and that val will be converted into val par 2. So using the exponentiation, we'll be converting this each values into squares of the values, and we'll be assigning them to new variable. So first val will point to 2.0 and it will apply the condition val square. So 2.0 whole square will give us 4.0, and moving on, 3.0 square is 9.0 and 4.0 square is 16.0. And in this map function is enclosed by a tuple value. So tuple typecasting function. So all these values will be saved into a tuple format, and that is assigned to square list. So this square list consists of a tuple of 4.0, 9.0 and 16.0. And then we are calculating the cubes also in the same way. So list LST will consist of 2.0, 3.0 and 4.0. Now this val in this lambda function will take 2.0 first and calculate the cube using the exponentiation of 3. So 2.0 whole cube is 8.0, and after 8.0, 3 cube will be 27. So 27.0, 4 cube or 4.0 cube will be 64.0. And then this map function is enclosed inside of a tuple typecasting function. So this will be converted into tuple, and that is assigned to C list. So all the squares of the values is in the SQ list and all the cube values are in the C list. So now we are using this part of the code to represent them as a neat table. So we'll understand it in a better way. So here we have for n comma SQ comma C. So here the zip function is again just pairing the old numbers, that is the given number and square of that and cube of that in a pair, such that we'll get the given number and the square of it and the cube of it. So first, as we are pairing it, the corresponding numbers will be paired. So first 2.0, that is the first element in list, and first element of square list is 4.0 and cube is 8.0. So there will be pairing them, and we will print them in an order n comma SQ comma C. That is, we are taking the for n SQC. So it will print 2.0, 4.0, 8.0, and for the next we have 3.0 and square is 9.0 and cube is 27.0, and then we have 4.0, 16.0 and 64.0. In this way we can find the square and cubes of the numbers. So now we have the combination of filter and map functions. So in this function we are trying to do what is, first we will get the positive numbers from the list, and then we will find the square of that list using the map. So using the filter, we'll filter out the positive numbers, and using the map, we will square them and transform the original numbers into squares of the numbers. So first, let's print this. So we'll enter the element separated by space. So let's take 4, space 5, space 6. So now what happens is, we have given the input. So this LST will take input using this input function, and it will take the input as 4, 5, 6 as a string, and that will be splitted using the dot split function. So wherever the spaces are there, using that spaces, elements will be splitted like this. So now the list will consist of 4 which is a string, 5 which is a string, 6 which is a string. So these are the elements in our list now. So we have a for loop here. So for val in the input which are splitted, so that is this. First val will be pointing to a string 4. So that val will be taken here and it will be converted into integer value using the integer typecasting technique. So first the values will be our 4 which is converted into integer, then 5 using the int function it will be converted into integer 5, then 6 which is a string converted into integer using the int function. So we'll get a list. So this is the LST 4, 5, 6. So now LST which is the original list will be 4, 5 and 6. Now if there are negative numbers also, we are trying to convert them into. So we are just getting the negative numbers and positive numbers and we are calculating the squares of it. So as I've given only positive numbers, so the positive square list only will happen here. So first let's understand this. So what happened here is the list will be, so first this is enclosed in a list. Okay. So the input we need in a list. So that is why I have enclosed in a list. So forget list for now. So the end input will be a list. So we have a map function. So what map function consists of? It consists of a function and an iterable object. So in the function, we have squaring of number. So we have a lambda function which squares the number. So that is our function for map function. And in the place of iterable object, we have a list again. So iterable objects are collection of elements which are list, right? So we have a list of. So we have list of. So this output is a list, and in that we have filter. So what filter function has a function comma iterable object. So first we will filter the positive elements from this using the lambda function in this filter function. So first we'll start from here. So the filter function will be executed first and it will take the condition val greater than 0 from the list LST. So values are taken. So 4 greater than 0 is true, 5 greater than 0 is also true, 6 greater than 0 is also true. So now all the values are considered 4, 5, 6. So this filter output is 4, 5, 6 which is converted into a list. So now so the list, the output of this part is 4, 5, 6. We got all the positive numbers from the original list, which is 4, 5, 6. So we are done with the iterable object for map. So we have the map function, we have the function, comma, the iterable object that is 4, 5, 6. Now, using a lambda function, we are converting each element into square of that elements using the map function. So we'll get the square, which is 16. 4 square 16, 5 square 25 and 6 square 36. And then this whole output will be 16, 25, 36. So we'll not have the map function also will not give us the result in the form of list directly, right? So we need to convert it again. So the map result is 16, 25, 36. Now using a list function, we are converting this whole thing, which is this output, into a list, that is this. So this result total, this total line result will be list of 16, 25, 36. So we don't have any negative numbers in the original list. So that is why the positive square list will be 16, 25, 36 and there are no negative numbers, right? So this won't have any input to take. So we'll only first we'll give the output as the original list 4, 5, 6 and positive square list will print the pos square list which is 16, 25, 36. We don't have any numbers, negative numbers in the original list, so we didn't get any numbers in the tuple form. So let's try giving negative numbers. So my negative numbers are -1, -2 and -3. So now if you see, first the list again will take this input as a string and separate them using the dot split function, and then it will calculate the int of these values, which will be from string to int. So my LST will be -1, -2, -3. So this is the original list which is printed using this print function. So before that we are separating them into positive and negative values. So as there are no positive values, we'll just ignore this for now. And we are calculating the negative values. So using the filter function, we'll filter the negative values. So n less than 0, all will be true. So this part will give us the output of, so we have a tuple, and the filter will give us output as -1, -2 and -3. So this will be the iterable for the map function, and the function consists of squaring of these values. So the output will be 1, 4, 9. So square of -1 will also give me 1 only, right? So minus into minus plus it will become, and it will give the squares. So minus will be gone. So 149. And then again map function also will not give us the correct output in a iterable form. So we need to convert it into tuple using the tuple format. So we'll get the output as 149. So that is why when you try to print everything, original list is this and negative numbers are 149. So let's try giving both negative and positive values. So let's run this again. So we have elements 1, -1, 2, okay, let's not confuse, 1, -10, 2, -20, 3 and -30. Now it will take all the elements. So original elements are 1, -10, 2, -20, 3, -30. Now all the positive values which are 1, 2 and 3 will be given to this pos SQ list. So all positive values here will become true, and all the positive values will be filtered using this filter function. So the iterable here will be 1, 2, 3, which is a list, and then they are converted into squares. So other numbers like -10, -20, here the condition will become false, right? So -10 won't be greater than 0, -20 won't get greater than 0, and so on. So here the positive elements are filtered and they are converted into squares of the elements using the map function, and the result will be as we have enclosed in a list function. So that will be a list of squares of the positive numbers in the original list. So that is 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9, and then these elements here. So here we are filtering the negative elements in the NEG SQ list. So negative square list we are filtering here. So -10 less than 0 will be true, -20 less than 0 will be true, and -30 less than 0 will be true. So negative elements will be filtered here using the filter function, and all the positive filters will make the condition false. So they won't be taken, they will be ignored. And negative numbers are taken and converted into tuple of values. So tuple of -10, -20, -30. So that will become the iterable for the map function here. So we will apply the lambda of n is to n square. So n square will be -10 whole square, comma, -20 whole square, comma, -30 whole square. So that will be 100, 400, 900. So map function doesn't give us the output directly in a tuple or list, right? So we'll convert them into a tuple using the tuple typecasting function, and we will get the output as tuple of 100, 400 and 900. So that is how we will get the output, that is the original list is 1, -10, -20, 2, 3 and -30, and positive square values are 149 for 1, 2, 3, and negative square list as -10, -20, -30 into 100, 400 and 900. So this is how we can combine filter and map function to get a both of the operations, like finding the positive or negative numbers and doing the square of them. So directly we can get that using both of the functions at once. So in the special functions, we still have the reduce function, which we'll learn tomorrow. So for today, we have learned the first two functions, that is filter function and map function. So filter function is used to filter the elements based on some condition from the iterable object, and map function will transform each element in the iterable object and it will give the new iterable object. So if you, that's it for today, guys. If you have any doubts, please put it in the chat box and we'll be answering that. Please wait for the feedback form. We will be sharing it in the chat box. If you want to revise your concepts, please go into the playlist called as Python for AI 2026 in our channel, and you can get the videos from 1 to day 18 and you can revise the topics. So after that, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. And if you like our content, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button and share it to your friends. So thank you for listening. That's it for today. Please wait for the feedback form.